Under what act are lenders prohibited from discriminating based on marital status or age? ECOA, Equal Credit Opportunity Act. What does the Fair Housing Act prohibit? Discrimination in housing and lending based on protected characteristics. What law protects against predatory lending practices? The Dodd-Frank Act, enforced by the CFPB. Which law regulates advertising of credit terms? TILA, Truth in Lending Act. What must be disclosed in lending advertisements under Regulation Z? If rates or payments are mentioned, APR and other key terms must be included. What law ensures borrowers can shop for settlement services? RESPA. What law requires lenders to maintain escrow accounts for certain loans? RESPA 10. What does the Fair Lending Act require? Equal access to credit regardless of race, color, religion, etc. What does the Community Reinvestment Act, CRA, do? Encourages banks to meet the credit needs of all segments of their communities. Key federal and state agencies. What is HUD? Department of Housing and Urban Development, oversees housing programs and enforces the Fair Housing Act. What is the FHA, under HUD? Federal Housing Administration, insures loans for low/moderate income borrowers. What is the VA? U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, guarantees loans for eligible veterans. What is the USDA's role in finance? Offers rural housing loans through its Rural Development Program. What is the CFPB? Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, enforces consumer financial laws. What does the CFPB oversee? RESPA, TILA, ECOA, and more. What is the FHFA? Federal Housing Finance Agency, regulates Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the Federal Home Loan Banks. What is Fannie Mae? Government-sponsored enterprise that buys conforming loans from lenders. What is Freddie Mac? GSE that buys and securitizes mortgages to ensure liquidity. What is Ginnie Mae? Government agency that guarantees MBS backed by FHA, VA, and USDA loans. What is the role of the State Real Estate Commission? Regulates real estate licensees and enforces state-specific laws. What is the NMLS? Nationwide Multi-State Licensing System, database for mortgage loan originators' credentials. What is the role of the Federal Reserve in real estate finance? Sets interest rates that influence mortgage rates. Who regulates banks at the federal level? The Federal Reserve, FDIC, and OCC, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. What is the role of the FDIC? Insures bank deposits and monitors financial institutions. What is the OCC? Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, regulates and supervises national banks. What is the role of state banking departments? License and regulate state-chartered banks and mortgage lenders. What is a housing finance agency, HFA? State or local agency offering down payment assistance and affordable financing. What is the Federal Trade Commission's, FTC, role? Enforces truth in advertising laws for lenders. Who enforces anti-discrimination laws in mortgage lending? HUD, DOJ, and CFPB. What is the Federal Home Loan Bank, FHLB, system? Provides liquidity to member banks for housing finance. What agency created the Home Affordable Refinance Program, HARP? Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA. Who administers the Making Home Affordable, MHA, program? U.S. Department of the Treasury and HUD. What is the SEC's role in mortgage finance? Regulates securities, including mortgage-backed securities. What's the role of the DOJ in housing finance? Enforces civil rights laws, including fair lending practices. Deadlines. Within how many business days must the loan estimate be provided after application? 3 business days. When must the closing disclosure be delivered before closing? At least 3 business days before closing. How many days does a borrower have to rescind a refinance on a primary residence? 3 business days. When must a lender respond to a loan application under ECOA? Within 30 days. When must a credit denial notice be sent under ECOA? Within 30 days of application. How long must lenders retain loan estimates and closing disclosures? 3 years for loan estimate, 5 years for closing disclosure. When must a notice of default, NOD, be recorded in non-judicial foreclosure? After 90 days of borrower delinquency, varies by state. How soon must a notice of trustee's sale be posted after NOD? Typically 3 months, state specific. What's the typical redemption period after a foreclosure sale? 30 days to 1 year, depending on state law. When must a mechanic's lien be filed after work completion? Typically 60 to 120 days. How long do borrowers have to correct errors after receiving a loan estimate? No deadline, but corrections must occur before closing. When must a good faith estimate be updated, for certain older loans? Within 3 days of a valid changed circumstance. When must PMI be canceled upon borrower request? When equity reaches 20%, subject to conditions. When must PMI automatically cancel? At 22% equity, if payments are current. How long do lenders have to refund excess escrow funds? Within 30 days of annual escrow analysis. When must annual escrow statements be provided? Once per year. How soon must funds be disbursed after closing? On closing day or shortly thereafter, depending on state law. When must you pay back a HELOC if not used? Usually no repayment until funds are drawn. When must a borrower respond to loss mitigation options? Within 30 days of notice from servicer. How long does a servicer have to respond to a qualified written request under RESPA? Acknowledge within 5 days, resolve in 30 days. What is the grace period before a late mortgage fee applies? Typically 15 days, varies by lender. When must tax liens be paid to avoid foreclosure? Varies by jurisdiction, often within 1 to 3 years. How long before a federal tax lien expires? 10 years after assessment. How long does a judgment lien typically last? Usually 10 years, can be renewed. How soon must loan servicing transfer notices be sent? At least 15 days before and no later than 15 days after the transfer. Fines and fees. What's the max penalty for violating RESPA kickback rules? $10,000 fine and or 1 year in prison. What is the fee for recording a mortgage or deed? Varies by county, typically $10 to $100. What are discount points used for? To lower the interest rate, 1 point equals 1% of loan amount. What is a loan origination fee? A fee charged by the lender to process the loan, usually 0.5% to 1% of the loan. What is a late mortgage payment fee? Typically 4% to 5% of the overdue payment. What is a prepayment penalty? A fee for paying off the mortgage early, not allowed on many residential loans. What is a title insurance premium? One-time fee paid at closing, varies by price and location. What are escrow fees? Charges for managing the closing and holding funds, split between buyer/seller. What is an appraisal fee? Typically $300 to $700, paid by the buyer. What is the underwriting fee? Charged by the lender for evaluating loan risk, $400 to $600. What's the penalty for violating TILA? Up to $5,000 per day for violations. What's the fine for violating ECOA? Up to $10,000 per incident, civil penalties. What's the fine for failing to give a loan estimate? Can result in enforcement by CFPB and fines up to $25,000 plus. What is the recording tax or mortgage tax? A state/local tax on recording a mortgage, varies by state. What is the transfer tax on real estate transactions? A tax on the transfer of title, varies by location. What is the HOA transfer fee? A fee charged to change ownership and HOA records. What is a document preparation fee? Charged for preparing legal loan docs, usually $100 to $500. What is a mortgage insurance premium, MIP? Required on FHA loans, upfront and monthly fees apply. What is the guarantee fee on VA or USDA loans? A one-time fee to cover default risk, varies by loan type. What's the fine for failing to provide a closing disclosure on time? CFPB may fine lenders up to thousands per violation. What's the cost of a credit report in a loan application? Typically $30 to $50. What are flood certification fees? Required to determine if the property is in a flood zone, $15 to $25. What is a subordination fee? Fee for reordering lien priority, varies by lender, $100 to $250. What is the penalty for failing to respond to escrow analysis overages? Lenders must refund excess within 30 days or face penalties. What happens if late fees exceed allowable limits under state law? The borrower may sue, and the lender may be penalized or forced to refund.